Howdy, you're listening to Wild West Filmmaking, exploring the outlaw way of indie film. Raw stories and real lessons from the frontier. Hosted by yours truly, Josh David Jordan. Welcome to another episode of Wild West Filmmaking. Not that we've had that many so far, but my guests that I've had so far have been amazing. And this episode is no different. I'm really excited about this team at Beauty First Films, and I'm gonna let you guys introduce yourself and maybe a brief description of what you do in the film world or the real world, or maybe it's the same. I don't know. I'll let you guys. Timothy, you will start. I'll go left to right here.
Well, yeah, I see that I've got my my little label there as Dr. Timothy Patitsas, so I can't hide that identity. I'm a professor at the Greek Orthodox Seminary in Boston, Mass, and I'm the author of a book called The Ethics of Beauty. Ethics is my thing. And one of my responsibilities at the seminary for a long time was planning and guiding our annual pilgrimage to Greece, Constantinople, the Holy Land, other adjacent places. That's where I got my real heart for pilgrimage. And of course, in 2019, became the co-founder of Beauty First Films with Thomaida.
I'm Thomaida Hudanish, and I, up to the time that we founded Beauty First Films, I was working for the Greek Orthodox metropolis of San Francisco in missions and evangelism, so helping parishes respond to all those that are looking into the Orthodox Church, coming to visit Orthodox churches. And similar to Timothy, I had a strong formation in pilgrimage. It was a huge part of kind of my experience growing in the church and growing closer to the faith. And so when it came time to start talking about filmmaking, we really decided that pilgrimage was something that we wanted to convey, this idea of introducing the viewer to places of awe, beauty, and holiness, and to holy people. And in the film, really, Timothy and I I would say we're, co-producers, co-directors, did a lot, all the groundwork for making the film happen, having the connections to know like what we wanted to do and who we wanted to talk to. And since then, we've met a lot of other filmmakers like yourself, which has been a huge joy. And that has really inspired us to keep going. But the other part that has come out of it is just seeing how hungry people are for pilgrimage resources. So another part of my work with Beauty First Films is that I've been trying to develop more pilgrimage resources to empower people to go on their own and, know where to go, know what they're looking for, and make that a part of their life.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, we all met. I was going to a screening of Sacred Alaska in Dallas, Texas at the Angelica Theater. And I was treated and then surprised by y'all's film that played before. And just give the audience a quick little description of the film. And then how did you guys team up, and how did the filming actually come about? How long did it take? How long did it take to edit? And then what is the trajectory of that? It's a lot of questions, but
yeah,
I'm really interested in all that.
So,
Timothy, do you want to start by describing the film?
Yeah, I'll do that little bit. So, I think, we had a good story that we wanted to tell, and the story was that someone that we knew that most people didn't, had been formally declared a saint, but the story was widely unknown, even in his native country, and that his first official feast day was coming up. So we had the idea to go there with a crew, capture that moment, and he died not that long ago, so in 1970. So in 2019, when we went for this event, a lot of people who remembered him came back. And so we were able to tell the story of his life largely in the words of the people who knew him directly. And we just knew that's something that hadn't been done before. Not that it's necessarily the greatest way to do it, but it's certainly what would be, so we were able to capture his influence on the people who knew him, because you can see in their stories and their lives who they are, who he was, reflected in that. So his name was Amphilochios Makris. He was born in the late 1880s and died, or as we say, reposed in 1970. And he was a monk. He was a priest monk. He was a kind of missionary. He was a little bit of a battler for social justice. He just had a lot of dimensions to him. He was an ecologist. And above all, he was just a person who touched a lot of lives and who really had his relentless message of love. And I would say one thing, it's a documentary short. It's exactly 30 minutes long. It's, as we say in Greek, it's a kukla of a film. It's, it's a little doll. Tommy,
Yeah.
what did I leave out?
So, I think, no, that's great, about the film. And then I'll try to answer the question of like, how did we team up? How long it took? And then Josh, you can remind us maybe we didn't answer. So, Timothy and I, as he said, he worked at the seminary. I worked for the metropolis of San Francisco. We would meet when I would go out to Boston to meet with our seminarians from our metropolis, and we became friends. And then he was in Portland for a retreat that he was giving, which is where I'm based. And meanwhile, I had a God family. I had this woman that I baptized, or am the godmother to their eldest child. She is a film producer, and the three of us started talking during Timothy's visit, and just about ideas for Orthodox film, and decided to make it a more serious, regular thing where we were studying documentaries of different types and talking about what we might want to make. We actually, she kind of assigned us to watch a bunch of different documentaries of different styles, and then had us like meet and discuss, what spoke to us and what we learned. And that was a really fun process, actually. And the thing that we just immediately, I think, resonated with us was Chef's Table. As a Netflix docuseries, and it has this incredibly high production value. And what we noticed is you just fall in love with the chef every episode. They do such an incredible job being right there in the kitchen with them, telling their story and telling it all through interview, sometimes with people that can speak to how important their work is to the industry, but mostly it's interview with the person themselves. And what I really liked about that was, look, I don't know very much about that high level of cuisine. I don't eat at those restaurants. I don't know how to cook that way. And yet that show never made me feel a separation or a distance from what was happening and this person's life story. And I thought, isn't that the case with Orthodoxy? Like, the faith is so beautiful, and there are all these intricacies and things that people don't know about, or maybe but we tend to say, oh, they won't understand, or we have to explain this. But I don't think we need to. I think we just need to bring them into the kitchen the way that Chef's Table does, and let them be with us and just enter our world without a bunch of preamble and explanation and pedagogy. So I really felt that was the right path for us, as much as we could. And so we sort of started building our vision of what the first film would be around that. And that's when Timothy said, this person that is somebody I believe is a really great saint has just been canonized. I'm going to go to Patmos either way for his feast day. So do we want to get a crew together? And so we were talking in like November, December of 2018. We were initially considering some other things first, which is another story. And then I think February, everything kind of took a left turn towards Patmos, and the feast day was going to be April 16th. So we quickly assembled our crew, fundraised, and got some help from other people on logistics. And we were, on a plane by April 10th or 12th. So it was fast, but we didn't know any different. Nobody told us it should go any differently. And I think, like, you know, what your podcast is dedicated to is this concept that there really aren't gatekeepers. And so when we called people and said, like, we have this vision to make a film, and we didn't even have the crew formed, and they were like, yes, we believe in you, do it. And they funded it, and we were like, okay, that shows me that God is opening the door. That shows me that there's a desire for this to happen. And it gave me encouragement, and it gave me courage to move forward.
Yeah, for sure. It's so wild that you said it, that cooking show on Netflix, because I was going to say the documentary feels at times like the Stanley Tucci documentaries that he makes, or just an Anthony Bourdain. It has that class, it has that style, but it also has a rawness about it all. Like, it's very inviting. Like you said, you're inviting people into the kitchen. So it's so crazy that was your basis, because I do feel that vibe 100%. And also, like, the fact that y'all are beauty first films. When I heard that, I was like, that's what I've been championing for so long. And for y'all to come into our orbit, it has all seemed so right. So do you think that if you would have had more time to think about it, you would have changed anything? Because it's very, very professionally done, but it's also very, very real. Do you think having a short amount of time, you didn't have enough time to overthink? I think that's what happens a lot of times. You know, I'm not a documentary filmmaker. I've made up a little bit of documentaries, and documentaries are my favorite thing to watch because I'm a narrative filmmaker, and I don't want to sometimes be subconsciously taking other people's ideas. So I really dive into documentaries. Do you think that just hitting the ground running is what you guys were able to, like, not think about anything, put the blinders on, and just really try to get it in the can? And then after it's in the can, what are we going to do with this? Or did you have a plan?
I would say the one main thing we would change is we would have gotten a carnet.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain what that is?
Oh my God, we had no idea what it was, and it's a kind of bill, it's basically a legal document that says all this high-priced gear I'm bringing into your country, here's a listing of it, and I'm bringing it out when I'm done.
Right.
And so I'm not going to pay import duties. So that was an aggravation, and not having that. And Tom Eda said, "Do you think we should get this?" And I said, "Oh, I'm sure no."
Well, we read extensively about it, and we had other friends help us read up on it, and all of us were like, I don't think we need this, actually. It doesn't sound like we need this. Yeah. And then it turned out we needed that.
Yeah. But believe me, I know that.
God protected us because a story we don't need to go into the details of, but because Greece is a small country, and and the person bringing the equipment in and the person checking it out actually happened to know each other, we were not penalized in any way. So that was a total miracle from God, just taking care of us and our crew and our equipment.
The carnet was written in our hearts, and we swear that we did bring all the equipment out.
Yeah, you touched the stove and you learned a quick lesson. Something else I was really blown away with when I watched y'all's documentary was I didn't know that you had that short of amount of time. Was it did you have 4 days, something around that ballpark?
Yeah, 4 days.
Okay, so you had 4 days.
Yeah, so the first day went poorly.
Yeah, of course.
Well, I mean, it was
if it went great.
The first day, a lot of doors were closed that we thought were going to be opened, and Tom Eda thought fast and said, "Put Tim in front of the camera." So that's why I'm in the movie. There was no plans for that, and then
it worked so well, yeah.
But we had to get something in the can. So Tom Eda.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny, looking back, I didn't think it went poorly. It's like the first day you're going around the island and you're trying to get a sense of where things are. You're trying to introduce yourself to the people that you've been communicating with through someone else, or maybe via email or phone, and you're saying, okay, this is really us. Are you really on board? Is this really going to work? And so we had a lot of yeses, but it was like that first introduction. So we didn't want to come in with the cameras blazing and be like, okay, like, we just kind of needed to make all the introductions. So that did take up a lot of time that first day. Plus, the way Patmos works is most ferries, it doesn't have an airport, so most ferries arrive at between 2 and 3 a.m. So there's just really no way around it. Like you are going to land at 3 a.m., get a couple hours of sleep, and then start working. And, we were really trying to be mindful of how crews tend to work and really take care of our crew the best we could. But it was a little, we didn't have a fixer, so it was kind of like me getting up early, running to the bakery and being like, okay, I need like 4 spanakopita's and this, and getting, a bag of water, and then just hoping that, the day was going to go smoothly so we could figure out where we were going to get meals for everybody and rest time. So thankfully, I think things went smoothly, but on the way to Greece, we were already on our way. And one of the people we did plan to interview wasn't well and wasn't able to travel to the island as expected. So that did change things because that was one of our main, like we had 2 people that were kind of anchoring the interviews on. And that's how Timothy ended up in the film. But in retrospect, I think it was really important to have at least one English speaker in the film, because otherwise it just looks like a Greek-made film. And I think, this is a film made by Americans who have a reverence for the saints, have a connection to Greece. But I think it's really a beautiful thing, both for Greek viewers and for American viewers, to see that it's made by Americans that have a veneration for the saint.
Wow.
I feel like, with a documentary, you've got to have a couple of sure things in there. And the person who was sick is probably himself going to be canonized a saint today. So I just thought, as long as he's in the movie, we're good. We're golden. And then, of course, he wasn't. And then it just took a while. But he was the person who gave the word to everyone else on the island. Hey, I know these guys. I trust these guys. Give them your full cooperation. And that's hard to do when you're filming in a monastery. They really are not seeking any kind of publicity. And they just as rather be completely forgotten by everyone. So a documentary goes kind of counter to everything that's why they became monks and nuns, so they wouldn't ever have to be in a documentary.
Was your because it's shot really very, very well, and it's beautiful, and was your DP, was he from, have y'all or her, did you meet that person before? Was it someone you met in Greece? Were they Orthodox?
So our DP is Akis Konstantakopoulos, and he is based in Los Angeles. He is Greek. He was raised, I believe, in Thessaloniki and then moved to the U.S. for film school. And he's been working in the U.S. ever since, but he also does some work in Greece. He's connected with, editors and directors and filmmakers in Greece. So that's kind of a neat thing that he's able to work in his homeland, and I think that's really satisfying for him. So we did not know him before, and we call him our production manager. We have a friend who had worked in the film industry for 14 years before he decided to answer a calling to go to seminary. And so he was from the San Francisco area, so I kind of knew him as somebody from our metropolis, and Timothy knew him as a student. And so he was, kind of a mutual friend. And when we had started talking about the filmmaking, he was the first person we're like, will you help us? Will you how this should go down? Please, and he worked on all kinds of things, like series, features, like all kinds of stuff. So he'd never worked with the likes of us. and so he gave us, so much wisdom and so many ideas. But like one day, he knew we were looking for 2 camera people. We knew we wanted to have 2 cameras and 2 different operators, and a sound person as well. So there were 6 of us. And he emailed me the reel for Akis, and And I looked at it and I said, this is amazing. And I said, okay, just let me know how you know him so that I can drop your name so that he can remember like your relationship. And he says, I don't know him. I just Googled Greek cinematographer. And I was reluctant, to say the least. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't just text him or call him because he's a Greek cinematographer. And then, but we just decided if somebody had a really strong feeling about something, we should knock on that door. And so I talked to Timothy and he's like, James feels strongly about this, so let's just do it. And so I wrote the email, and within 24 hours we were on the phone, and I think within 48 hours we decided he was the guy. And it was such a good experience. We just feel like that was another miracle of God.
Yeah, having a DP that you can trust and rely on, it's almost like it's a third director in a way, because they're seeing things completely different than how you guys are approaching it, and it's like a whole new fresh set of eyes. And I think it's most DPs could be phenomenal directors, and most do turn out to be directors, like maybe not Roger Deakins, he's one of the greatest DPs of all times, but I think a lot of directors would say like he's a third Coen brother in a way, because of the way that he sees things, and it's outside the box, and he's not really dealing with financiers or production people. He's just dealing with the art and the beauty. He's looking at beauty first, for sure. So with this film, it's a 30-minute film. Is this something that you're going to add on to? Is this part of a series, or is this something that's a standalone and we're going to see more things like this from y'all?
Can I say something about the DP?
Of course, yeah, please.
Move on.
Yeah.
They say that good pilots either are flying or talking about flying. They don't want to talk about anything else. And with I think that's true in the art world. Akis wants to be filming. He wants to be looking through a lens. He wants to be studying light and angles, and that's who he is. And it's so much. I mean, it's so much more than a third director. Because it's a whole brain that just knows how to look through a lens, and it's going to strengthen you in every way possible. I don't know. I just felt like that's important to say.
I think all the DPs that I've worked with, they all carry just film still photography cameras on set, and if they're not messing with the film camera, I'll turn around and they're taking a picture of a tree with shadows, or they're taking photos of the cast and crew. It's just, and they can't get enough. And that's really what you want in a DP, is someone who's, because we're more concerned about, for me it's like the lines or getting our day done. For y'all it's questions, make sure you're getting the point across, and they're just looking at shadows, they're looking at the fall off of
and there's not an infinite number of people out there, but there are people like that in every aspect of production. And really, in terms of everybody making a movie, what you're bringing is a story, because they're waiting for the story to organize all those talents around, or they're waiting for a story and someone with enthusiasm about that story, and then they're just going to give you their best. And
our sound guy, Cody Putman, he's worked on all the things that I've done, and we were filming on this remote island for El Tonto Por Cristo, and he came back. I didn't know where he was, and he came back like 45 minutes to an hour, and he had all of his gear, and I said, everything okay? He goes, oh yeah, I set up a second set of gear throughout the whole day to capture the ocean and whatever birds. So he recorded sound for like 9 or 10 hours on a different side of the ocean on the beach. And he goes, if you can't use it, at least it's kind of cool. And so
this was for El Tonto?
This was for El Tonto. It's for the beach scenes in El Tonto. But he was doing it, and also he would do it at night. He would set up sound and record the animals and bugs at night. I didn't know this until I got the folder, and it was like nighttime bugs, animals. And we used some of that. We used some of that for some of our night scenes. And I think when you have some people who are so passionate, it's what they say, like, like I'll bring it back to sports, like with Michael Jordan, or, all the guys who played with Michael Jordan, they were phenomenal. But like whenever he left, it was like no one went on to win championships. He elevated them so much. And I think having people like that around you, it elevates me. And, we all know when you're making films, sleep is not on your side and you're exhausted, but having people who you can see it in their eyes when you're having that morning coffee and they're just like already testing light or they're testing sound, it fires me up. And, we're off to the races. I think that's the most important thing is, to surround yourself with, people more talented than ourselves, to elevate.
Everyone on our crew was that kind of like elevate you right away with their professionalism and passion. So it's a great environment to find yourself in if you're ever lucky enough to do that. And thanks to Thomaida, I was.
Yeah, we were really blessed.
Did you want to answer the other question about the?
Yeah, so we did film a second film at the same time, and we went directly from Patmos. Well, we had to get back to Athens, and then we went to Jerusalem and filmed 4 interviews and some footage during Holy Week and Pascha. And we're working on completing that film. It's totally different, though. Patmos was quiet. We had freedom to move around. We had space. We had all kinds of blessings. And Jerusalem was crowded and chaotic. And we, even though we had 3 times as many days, we didn't really have the access we had in Patmos. So it was so much harder to get the interviews, get the content. And watching the footage has been such a rude awakening, I think, because we're like, oh, okay, the Patmos footage looks like this, and then the Holy Week footage is just more chaotic. And I'm watching it, I'm learning we should have checked for that or tried for that. So there's some issues that I'm just realizing wow, that was such a complicated shoot. And so that movie will be different, and it'll be about Holy Week and why be a pilgrim to Jerusalem. And I think it'll always be timely whenever it comes out. So we kind of were with Patmos, we were saying we're going to use this film to learn how to make a film. We're going to use this film to fundraise, and we're going to use this film also to say this is the kind of thing we're capable of if people want to fund films and have this kind of content. And with the Jerusalem film, I think the process will go more smoothly, but it's not necessarily faster, partly because it's just we are presented such different challenges with the storytelling, I think. But I really like the content, the interviews. I think we're really blessed in the people that we interviewed, who are all people who serve the church in Jerusalem. And they have really unique vantage points. And so it's exciting, and I'm excited for people to see it. And then, just bigger picture, we don't know what will come next, but I don't think that we had this huge long list of the kinds of things we wanted to make, and then because of it was going to be Saint Amphilochios' first feast day, and then Pascha was lined up right after that, and we were both working, and we could manage to get the time off to make this happen. It was just the right timing for that. I think that future films will not necessarily be a bunch of they're not going to be a line of films about saints that are 30 minutes long, nor are they going to be a line of films about pilgrimage destinations that are 30 minutes long. But I think that I'd really like to see some films that explore some of the themes that are in Dr. Tim's book about the ethics of beauty, that, explore that in a visual way, and bring other speakers into it. I'd like to see some that are maybe more like you had mentioned Anthony Bourdain, and one of our early things that we would say was like, okay, it's going to be like Anthony Bourdain meets Rick Steves meets Mount Athos. And so I could also see like a little bit more of a pilgrimage travel series, like a limited series. There's a lot of ideas, and I think that we bring a unique way of approaching these, and I think we kind of want to do different things rather than a series of the same.
I'm gonna change my headphones here. I think I'm echoing on my end. Yeah, for sure. Am I still echoing? I think so. I think we're okay. Let me plug my headphones back in. Sorry. We'll edit this part out, y'all.
Okay.
I think maybe it could be the room. I'm not really sure. Yeah, so all that sounds super exciting. I mean, I think when you talk about the new film seeming different and a little bit jarring and shocking, I think that's not normal and natural. My first film was handheld, it was colorful, it was a modern day musical. And then El Tonto Por Cristo is a black and white European style cinema. And it was jarring for me for filming to feel so confined and in the editing process. But now I couldn't imagine anything else. And we can just like merge right into that, because I was lucky enough to show the trailer for El Tonto Por Cristo before y'all's film in Dallas and before Sacred Alaska. And then I had the opportunity of going to Washington, D.C. and showing it to the Metropolitan. And Timothy joined us in this packed theater. And I'm joking, it was only us. And then Thomaida, you, I believe, got a screener for it.
Yes.
So I have a list of questions. I know we can't get to them all here, but since I have you, how do you think a project like El Tonto, let's back up. How about you guys can give a brief, each of you can give a brief little summary of what you thought about El Tonto Por Cristo. Just, it can be abstract, it can be, whatever you guys feel of what did you think, because there's been zero narrative Orthodox films from America. You know, we've seen Ostroff, The Island, we've seen Man of God, and that's more of a biography. What were y'all's original feelings about watching El Tonto Por Cristo?
Mm-hmm.
Thomaida, do you want to go first or me?
Go for it.
One of my basic, guides to any film is, to any film is, does it make me, repent my life while I'm watching it? Like while I'm in the theater, do I start to feel, just my eternal responsibility? And that film did it, but in a way that was not oppressive. And, I definitely felt as I was watching the film that I was asking myself questions about, well, who am I and what am I, what's the state of my soul, and which of these conditions that I'm seeing in the film apply to me? How can I be better? So that thing is always very rewarding in a film, that, you feel that you leave the film and it's more powerful than any sermon. It's not really a sermon at all. It's a chance to look in on someone else's life and measure your life by that standard and be renewed. And then the main character is just so lovable, and you're drawn to him and follow his progress, as it were. Not to give anything away, but you care about him very much, and that even though this is a fictional character, you're never going to meet him. Somehow he is a standard and someone who you look up to. So yeah, that's part of it. I could say more, but I'll stop there.
Yeah. So I think, one of my first thoughts watching it was just how every scene, I was looking at the lighting and the balance of it, and there are just so many beautiful stills. I was like, oh, this could be a still, this could be a still. It's just so vivid, like the pictures, the balance even of like black and white, because it's in black and white. And I loved those moments of just seeing like, okay, this was just done so carefully and with such a good eye. And then I thought, of Tarkovsky, of course, and I was like, so many people among our, friends and extended film community like loved Tarkovsky. He's their favorite filmmaker, and I think that people who are open to that are gonna really love this film and really be willing to go on the journey of it. And there were parts of it that made me laugh out loud. There were parts I was like, whoa, what's going on here? And I think that was good because it really kept me engaged. And at first I'm like, okay, what's it trying to say? And then after a while it's like I could relax from that. And I really, like, Timothy said, the main character, you really care about him and you want to be on that journey with him. I really felt that for each of the characters. I liked that. At first I was like, okay, is there an endless number of people that are going to be coming into this film? Because they get, sort of vignettes, they get, very specific treatments. And then as time goes on, you see them over and over again. And that became a wonderful thing. Like, I looked forward. Oh, it's this person again. I'm excited to see what happens now. And
can I don't want to interrupt you, but can I jump in on your comment about the stills?
Yeah.
I so appreciate that in a film. And I don't know if you noticed, Josh, but I actually pulled out my camera when during the screening because I wanted to take shots of different moments of the beach scene. And I got my camera out too late. And of course I would have asked you and deleted it if, but I really regret that because I won't be able to, I'll never see it probably on a screen that big again. And the cinematographer Roberto Schaefer was like that. He was the cinematographer for the first 3 Bond films with Daniel Craig. Mm-hmm. And I love that aspect of the films, that so many shots worked as perfect stills and were framed in a way to release your soul and bring you into the beauty of someone else's eye. I aspire to that in my picture taking and never reach it. So when a cinematographer can do that, it's such a great gift to be along for that ride and to see through someone else's. Right, like it's such a rare medium film, like because, I'm not really. It's not the same that I see someone else's painting in a film. I'm seeing what the cinematographer saw and what the director saw, and I'm seeing. I know what it's like to be them for those few minutes.
Yeah, that was a conversation that we had, and thank you. That was a conversation I had with Hutch, our director of photography. Was I wanted every scene to be able to be grabbed and then put into a frame, but not in a pretentious way.
Not pretentious at all. It wasn't.
And it's a fine line. I think it's just really finding what he liked the most, what I liked the most. It's about, production design, location. And I think the black and white really lends to that because the starkness of their cassocks against the old White House. And there's just things that if you allow it to happen, it will. If you have all the parts and you let it run wild, I think that's when you capture something. And Hutch did such a phenomenal job. He's worked in black and white film for years, and he's gone to Cannes and Venice, and he's won Sundance and South by, and he's just a phenomenal. And we actually used the same exact lens that Kubrick used in The Shining and Tarkovsky used in Nostalgia. It's this old Cook lens, and it's a zoom lens because we weren't able to change lenses and all that. We just had to zoom and keep moving because we only shot for 14 days. Okay. Wow. Here's another question here. Go ahead.
Yeah. And on top of all this, you've made the first Orthodox Western.
I have. Yes.
Have people told you that, or do they say that about This World Won't Break as well? But this really is a Western, and I felt, and as I was watching through it, I thought, this is so great to see monks in it.
Yeah, and we had a couple Stetsons made specifically for the movie that are in the film, so it's even more. There's a lot of Easter eggs of Texas. There's a boot company called Tecovas. They're in Austin, Texas, and they made some special boots that some of the monks wear.
Wow.
So it's Texas through and through. Heat, yes, that was definitely Texas heat that we were dealing with. But yeah, I think that This World Won't Break was a Western. I think this is my next film has the same style. It may be something like growing up with Sergio Leone and watching Good, Bad, and the Ugly, or John Sturgis's Bad Day at Black Rock. Those things are just like embedded. And sometimes when we're surrounded by something subconsciously, it's what comes out in our art later on in life. And it doesn't hurt to live in Texas. When you're making films, for it to seem like a Western. I have a good question for you here. This is actually me and my wife, Jessica, we're talking about this. Do you think stories like this, rooted in tradition, but imagined for now, can shape how we experience faith, art, or even pilgrimage?
Stories.
Yeah, stories like this. Yeah, rooted in tradition. But imagined for now, which was really hard for me to do because there was nothing really to look to.
Yeah.
And I felt at times maybe I wasn't Orthodox enough. That sounds so ridiculous, but I really did have that on my heart. And then talking with clergy, talking with Metropolitan.
Well, we had that on our heart too. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. It's a moving target, and it's you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big question. I think, I mean, the way we experience, it can change the way we experience our faith, for sure. I mean, the answer is a yes, but how? I mean, I think Timothy said it really well when saying like this, this story, it's causing me to examine my own life, right? And I think that right there, I mean, we as viewers have to bring Christ is everywhere present in our lives. And so we're always going to look at things and be like, how is this bringing me closer or bringing me further away from my faith and from Christ? And so I think it's, it's really on the audience to look at art through the same lens of their faith. But I think, I mean, it's kind of a hard question to answer because it is so imagined. Like I was trying to think, I was like, there were so many things about this that also probably in a healthy way are a tell that this place does not exist. Like there were things I was like, wait, I've never seen that. That doesn't, that doesn't happen like that. And then I was like, okay, I think that's like the point, like it doesn't exist like this. But again, I think, I mean, more so, I think it's as long as these stories are giving us inspiration to really examine our spiritual life, that is the benefit. And I mean, Tarkovsky said like the purpose of art is for repentance, like to prepare you to die. And there's different versions of that, different ways of saying that. But I think it's given me a lot to think about since I read that quotation.
Yeah, and I guess I'm thinking about this, and it's like we all did movies about modern day saints in a way, or the stories. I think that's how important is that to y'all to tell stories for America's new, it's a newer country, and Orthodoxy is not as old as most places, and things are set in tradition. And do you feel like it's a call? Do you feel like is it scary? It's a little bit nerve-wracking to me to tell these stories and that haven't been told before. I don't know. Y'all, your documentary's about a modern day saint, and did you ever feel like you're treading new waters? Was it a little bit nerve-wracking for you?
I mean, there's yes to everything, you know, on all sides. Yes and no to everything. I think you just got to throw yourself out of the airplane sometimes. And I think if you're in love with something and it's the church or it's Christ or it's the saint, I think as long as you don't, as long as you don't somehow, you know, look down on your audience by packaging that or sugarcoating that, I think if you just show up raw, I think everything is permitted. Like people forgive everything. What they don't forgive, you know, is an attitude of superiority or of, or you know, I'm the knower and you're not. I mean, our film, by the end of our film, that's a short film, you just feel like, I don't want this to end because I don't want to lose my connection with this person that I saw in the film. And I remember seeing Terrence Malick's Thin Red Line for the first time. I saw it in the theaters and whatever it came out. And that opening sequence with Jim Caviezel and he's at the shore. And by the time that sequence is over, I remember thinking so deeply in my heart, that man should never die. And of course, that should have been the clue. But that's why I liked Chef's Table later on. That, you know, it made me fall in love with those people the way that Malick did. And I haven't answered your question at all. I just went totally sideways. I'm
in on that. I loved it. No, I was with you. I was on the journey there.
Yeah. I mean, I think we have being a documentarian, you have a safer path because you're documenting what is. You're not laying yourself vulnerable to like, here's a story that I came out of my brain and I hope it makes sense to you. But yeah, I still think, I mean, like, I guess I didn't feel that same risk because I acknowledged that, like, we're just telling about this person that is, but we still had the risk of telling it well and honoring him. But I didn't feel that telling his story was risky, you know what I mean? But just that we could, like, kind of like Timothy said, we could be patronizing or we could be too pedagogical of like trying to explain things, or, you know, there were a lot of different choices we had to make, and that is nerve-wracking. Or just, you know, there were times when I thought the film was done, and then we editing it was one thing of like editing all the things that people said and trying to find a fluid narrative through it, because we did have a plan, but then, you know, you get all kinds of extra wonderful things and then you have to decide what to do. And then you don't get some of the things you thought you were going to receive. And then other times when later on, when, you know, the film was cut, we had our story, but then I was like, okay, it's done now. But then no, it's like, you need to just go the extra mile on, like we added an animation at the beginning, and then we're like, you know, some of the things that we ran into with composing and sound. And so it's like, those were all the moments where I didn't want anybody that had given to make this film possible to be let down by the final project.
Yeah. You know, that really makes me think of something like, would you say, like not letting people down, or people's opinion of what you're creating. So you guys are filmmakers. You also happen to be Orthodox. Do you think that you continue making Orthodox-based films? Or do you think, this is the question I've been talking to several creators and filmmakers who happen to be Orthodox, because I've had people email me and say, you know, how did you make an Orthodox film? Will you continue to make Orthodox films? And I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that I think my Orthodox faith has a lot to say on the screen that maybe not hitting someone over the head. Do you guys feel like there's avenues or opportunities to make something, maybe it's about food or cooking or chefs, and that you're bringing your Orthodox, foundation through that? Is that something or do you think you'll always make Orthodox based films?
I mean, I think I feel free to make other things, but I also
All right.
recognize that, like, I don't know that they'll be funded, but I definitely think we have something to say about other topics, but it's not like, I'm just gonna, well, here's an idea that, I'll just throw out there as an example. So there are several Orthodox people I know, including clergy, that have really taken to the sport of surfing. Okay. And there's a story there. There's a story about the ministry of what the surfing has been, and why they got involved, and why they're still involved, and the relationships that they form through surfing that are really part of their ministry in the church. And I love, I think there's a lot to say there, even without necessarily like wrapping it up in like, and this is good for the church, or you know what I mean, at the end. But like, it's just a beautiful story about people that happen to be in a certain place, called together by a certain, sport, and what they're experiencing through it. So that's not something I'm aspiring to make, but it's something that kind of occurred to me because of all the different individuals that love surfing in my life, and how I just thought like that's something that is worth exploring. But I just feel like it's never going to be something that's like sort of esoteric, because if it's coming from me, it's all going to relate through who I am as an Orthodox Christian that's really trying to see things through the lens of, is this bringing me closer to Christ? And so if it is food, if it is urban design, if it is pilgrimage, it's going to be because I want to tell a story that I think is edifying, and that I have some unique like exposure or access to. Like, I'm the person to tell it because God has put me in this place to do it, and like, so that's why I believe it's worth telling. So anyway, so I think that because of that, because I believe that like I'm in this specific time and place with my life experience for a reason, and that God is like opening those doors. Like, I'm not afraid to make films like that, but I do think that you have to match up these untraditional ideas with the funding, you know what I mean? And so I don't believe it's impossible to do. I just believe if it's the right time and the right thing, like the people will like, yeah, oh, I totally hear you. In fact, I've been thinking that needs to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
I had to move because my battery's dying. I think you have to make a film, just two criteria or three criteria. The first is, what's the film you want to make that you also have to make, that you can make, and that's all that really matters. And to make it an Orthodox film has to do with the fact that you're making an Orthodox life. And you're immersed in the liturgy, and you're immersed in confession, or whatever it is that is your whatever that is, spiritual readings, scripture, and then those three questions. What's the film that I want to make, that I have to make, and that I can make, and then just get after it, because behind that film is the next film. I always remember that I read a biography of U2, and they made October one of their albums, and the manager said, I know this isn't the breakthrough I'm looking for in terms of hit singles, but it's the album the band has to make, and I'm committed to backing them up on that and getting them through and what great songwriting ability came out of his respecting that.
Yeah. I mean, I always go back to when people say, like, where do you get your ideas? You got one about a country singer in his 40s who doesn't make it. Then you have a clairvoyant monk who's a fool for Christ on the coast of Texas in black and white. And my response is always, it wasn't available to watch anywhere. I wanted to see it. And we live in a day and age where technology and finances have caught up to where we can make those things. And I know I'm really excited. It's almost like I have too many ideas and not enough time. I heard someone on a podcast, I think it was a filmmaker, but he says, it was Bryan Cranston, the actor, and he was talking about, when you're young, you have all this gumption and you have all this energy, but no doors are open. And then the older you get, the less energy and time you have, but you have all the doors and all the connections. So it's almost like, beauty's, yeah. That's how that's how I feel.
Civilization depends on a series of fortuitous circumstances, that the people with the money meet the people with the ideas and that they recognize each other. And if that doesn't happen, your culture doesn't advance.
Like patrons of the arts is what you're saying.
Patrons of the arts are crucial.
That's exactly what I was going to say, which brings us to why it's important to be a patron of the arts, because we've talked about this in various conversations about just those people that both mentor you, but also give you a space to experiment and try things and make mistakes are invaluable. And like Timothy is describing U2's album, that's a stepping stone to the next album. It's like, if you don't have people, like, we have to just be people of integrity that are making things that make sense for us to make. I'm not going to promise to make you a film that I can't make. I'm going to only make the things that I feel like, I'm in the right position to make this, and I feel called to make it. Like, again, like what Timothy was saying, like, I'm inspired to make this, and I have a viewpoint on this topic, or I have a feature in my heart that needs to be made. And I think just being that person and being honest, the people that are like, yes, I want to see this content and I want to see whatever content you make. There are people that are doing that. There are people that are subscribing to Substacks and paying people. Like, I don't care, just write every Sunday. I want to see what you're going to come up with. Or, on Patreon, like, I think there are many people who have a desire and an understanding that I like what comes out of this person because they're on a journey that is edifying to me and I understand, and they're like a co-sufferer or also an inspiration, and I'm just ready for whatever comes, and we need that.
Yeah. I mean, just think about like the architect Christopher Alexander. Everyone knew he was great, but somehow there were never patrons to get everything built. That spells death for a culture. Today, Leon Creer died, the great as a Belgian city planner and architect. Again, everyone knew he was great, but there just was not, somehow the money just couldn't learn who he was, and he's gone. That's forever. He's not coming back from the dead.
That breaks my heart, because I wake up or I go to bed, I do feel as if I'm very thankful that the patrons of the arts contributed for El Tonto Por Cristo, because, a studio or no one's going to understand orthodoxy, a narrative feature, and I have nothing to compare it to. So I can't crunch numbers and be like, well, this did this. It's never been done before. So it's a big leaps and bounds, and people took a chance, and we're still day to day. We're raising the money as we speak to put this thing in theaters because we believe it's a theatrical piece. And, Timothy, like you said, watching it that large, it's like watching a 20-foot by 40-foot painting. And if it wasn't for these very, very few patrons of the arts that really stepped in, and, we're working on the vinyl record right now with Michael Paraskevas, who is the composer of the movie, and he happens to be Orthodox, but he also is up for an Emmy right now for Agatha All Along. And he has, he has a lot of irons in the fire, and he is in his own way a patron of the arts by helping me out, you know, in this independent film, because no other studio would do that. So I know that you guys have patrons of the arts, and it's the most important thing in the world. Well, as we wrap this up, well, first of all, thank you guys so much. I could talk to you guys for hours, and I'm sure we will soon.
Can I say something about the Orthodox thing, though? Because I want, you know, to make sure listeners or viewers, whatever, are not getting that wrong. It's, you know, many times, Thomaida or I or other people we know will meet someone who isn't at all an Orthodox Christian. Maybe they're in a different, or maybe they're not even a believer in God. And they'll say, and that person will say something or produce something, and we'll say, that is so Orthodox. And that's really the meaning in which that we're after making Orthodox content. There's that you know, indefinable something that grabs the ethos of the church. And I don't care to explain it, you know, at the moment right now, but, you know, and so in a sense, if you're making the, you know, like I said, the thing you have to make, the thing you want to make, the thing you can make, then whether or not it's Orthodox is not solved by, you know, adding more religious stuff in it and more icons. It's really a determination of your soul. And so hopefully our work will become more Orthodox over time, you know, as we become more spiritually integrated, you know, and our integrity grows.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I want to add to that too, because one of the wisest things I heard about, you know, people about liturgical music, they were saying, you know, it's Greek or it's Russian, and when will we have an American, you know, Orthodox liturgical expression? And this was something that I don't hear as much in the circles that I'm moving in, but like it was something that maybe 10 or 15 years ago people were asking, and like there was a little bit of anxiety about it. Like we've got to, you know, put our mark on this. And it's not a, I heard these really accomplished church musicians, and they said, our job is to do, you know, perform is not the right word, but to use the music and the tradition that's been given to us and do that to the best of our ability, the highest ability of our skills, to get trained, to be better singers, to be better conductors, to read music better. And then through our lives and through the generation after us and the generation after them, there will be a American liturgical music, because it'll just happen because of who we are. But we cannot impose our own, you know, okay, let's look at the keys that, you know, have been in American jazz or in American spirituals or whatever, and then like say, now we're gonna, you know, compose this based off of some you know, themes of American music. I mean, some people, like, that is, you know, maybe something they've been working on, but I'm just saying, like, it's gonna happen organically through our lives. We don't have to be too anxious or self-conscious or precious about it. And so I think that dovetails well with what Timothy's saying, is that you just have to make the story that makes sense to you. And, you know, and with, like you did, talking to clergy, talking to your friends, testing it and saying, okay, am I off base here? Can you help me? You know, because I want to make something that really does speak and does edify and does express the church. And so, you know, you have to go and get your community to help you. But at the end of the day, you just got to make the thing that's on your heart.
Yeah. And we as Orthodox know we have time on our side. It's been a long time, and I think it's patience. And I think that Orthodox understand patience. You know, yeah. Well, this was a blast. I can't wait to hang out with you guys. Just so the audience knows, where can we push them, and which direction? What's the best way to follow what's happening next? It could be a screening. It could be a pilgrimage. The beautiful calendars you make. What's the best place to go?
beautyfirstfilms.com is the best place to go. And we have links. You can watch Amphilochios online. It's available on vimeo.com to rent or purchase. And we're really excited about that because it's available worldwide. Most countries have access. And we have subtitles in 4 different languages. So it's really, really exciting. And then, like you mentioned, our calendar, the 2026 calendar will be coming out in August. We're finishing up photography for that right now. And we have a few other projects kind of in the works that are pilgrimage related, but everything, beautyfirstfilms.com is the hub for that. And then the links for the different places are from there. And so we invite people to go there, but we also want to invite people to support El Tonto Por Cristo and the campaign that's going. This is a really important time, and we're so excited to see it in theaters. And so please, if you're listening, support the campaign and share with your friends.
It's going to be in theaters all over the world very, very soon. Thanks for y'all's support. I know we're all in crazy locations, and I hope to talk to you all soon.
Undisclosed locations.
Undisclosed. Yeah. I'm in the back cave. All right. Y'all take care.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.